I'm Shachar Azani, and welcome to this episode of Eye on Israel. As the war against Hamas rages on, and we keep on learning more and more about the evil acts of Hamas against innocent men, women, and children, one thing stands out: the strength of Israel's civil society following the October 7th atrocities. The Israeli people has come together in an unprecedented manner, and still does, to alleviate the suffering of Israelis and support the brave men and women, the IDF soldiers who are fighting on the ground for the future of Israel. We are thrilled to have with us in studio again today Daniel Kahn. He's the chairman of NATAN, Worldwide Disaster Relief, a non-profit humanitarian relief organization based in Israel. His background is in international relations, and he served as a senior intelligence officer at Israel's Prime Minister's office for over 20 years. With him is Alice Miller. Alice is the newly appointed CEO of NATAN. She was born in South Africa and came to Israel with her family at the age of 6. Alice's name is actually a household name in Israel. It's very known because she was part of a landmark case that she led before Israel's Supreme Court. At the age of 18, Alice learned that women were barred from the prestigious Israeli Air Force pilot course. So she decided to fight for her right to serve in court, and her victory opened the door for women, not just in Israeli Air Force, but also in numerous military roles in the IDF. She didn't become a pilot, but she served for 10 years in the Air Force as an aerospace engineer and officer. She's been working in the aeronautical and space startups, and after the events of October 7th, Alice decided to focus on humanitarian efforts and found her way into the heart of NATAN. Alice, Danny, such a pleasure to have you with us today in our studios in Times Square.
Pleasure to be with you here.
Yeah, very much.
So, telling the story of Israel is really a story of Israeli civil society and the heart. Share with us a little bit about October 7th. Where did that catch NATAN as an organization and you?
It's very symbolic, because on October 7th we had two teams deployed abroad. One in Morocco. We should remember that 3 weeks before there was an earthquake in the Marrakesh region in the Atlas Mountains, and we had a team there working with the local population, helping them on the medical level and on the psychological level, dealing with trauma. So that was one team. The other team was in Ukraine, because NATAN is involved in Ukraine since the beginning of the Russian invasion, training local teams to deal with kids' trauma, to try to provide to the education system on the front line the basic support for their teachers and students. So we had both teams on the ground
on that day. So it's amazing. On the day of October 7th, and your team is in Morocco when the atrocities take place in Israel. I want to ask on a personal note, where did that catch you personally? Where were you on October 7th?
Well, I just came back from an international conference, one of the biggest on Earth in space. I was working as a space professional, and came back to Israel, and I understood that I'm in the wrong place. That I was building a factory on the moon. Actually, that was what I was doing, but I understood that I would love to do something which is closer to people, closer to Earth, closer to giving to people who I need. And I left my job after October 7th and waited for Danny to publish this advertisement for a CEO. NATAN has got over 1,700 volunteers.
Wow.
Everybody in NATAN are volunteers, and all professionals, doctors, nurses, psychologists, etc. And I really looked into this organization and I said, what? How can an organization be 100% volunteer-based? Management, somebody has to, how do they do it? And I found that this organization does what it says. You know, it volunteers. When an atrocity happens somewhere or a natural disaster, within 24 hours, the organization is deployed. People take leave from work for 2 weeks, go and help people in need. And I said, this is what I want to do for my life. And that's what I'm doing here today. Yeah.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
And I was at home, and after a very few hours, I got a call from Dr. Eitan Shachar. Dr. Eitan Shachar is one of our volunteers,
right,
and is leading the psychosocial team, meaning all the trauma support. And he reached Ofakim in the south, 20 kilometers from Gaza, the same day when they were still shooting around.
On the same day?
On the same day, Saturday afternoon.
Ofakim was heavily hit in the attack.
Yes.
Ofakim, unfortunately, had 52 people killed
52.
in a very, very small area, a small neighborhood of 4 streets altogether.
Wow.
And the population was really in trauma. And Eitan Shachar called me and said, Danny, we must do something. There is no resilience center in the city. Nobody is taking care of the population well-being. We have to open a community resilience center.
Wait. On the day of,
On
a
the
few
day of
hours
the 7th.
into it,
Yes.
and we remember very well that Hamas savages, terrorists attacked, and the battles raged on for a few days. So you have your volunteer already going down to Ofakim on that day. That's amazing.
Yeah, the battle in Ofakim ended the same night,
Right.
Saturday night. And yeah, we had Eitan Shachar really on the ground, helping, trying to guide the people with very, very primary support.
Right.
But already thinking that we need to do much more and for a much longer term. And that's the reason that he suggested this center. He immediately agreed. I said, go on, I'll find the money.
And that's what you discussed that day.
And
Already he
that's
was
what we
thinking about
discussed,
establishing the
that's what
center.
We
Started
And
already. What does that
started.
mean, started, Danny?
Meaning coming and gathering the social workers of the municipality,
Right.
trying to assess with them what are the exact needs, meeting the mayor of Ofakim, and deciding what will be the answers. And then we began, in fact, an integrative program, which is very unique in Israel at least, where all the actors, all the agencies involved in the well-being of the population are working together, but well coordinated. The same Eitan Shachar has been appointed by the mayor of Ofakim to become the coordinator, and we are working together with all other organizations. And we built a program with the center of it is this famous Community Resilience Center that we discussed on October 7, opened after 2 or 3 weeks. And
2 or 3 weeks?
Yeah, and it's working fantastically with a local team and with a community very much involved.
Right. You must understand that after 7th of October, one of the big problems we had was that the government took time to respond. And there was nothing, and these people in Ofakim who are economically, on the lower levels of society, they not only were attacked, but they felt totally abandoned. And there was no one to pick up the glove, as we say in Hebrew. There was no one who said, okay, we'll come in. And then civil society, which NATAN is part of, took the lead,
right.
And the object of NATAN is not to carry on running the center forever. The object of NATAN is to fill in the gap. And this is true in a tsunami, this is true in an earthquake, and this is true in the war in Ukraine, true in the war in Israel. We fill the gaps. When the need is there, we are there. That's what we do.
And maybe explain to our viewers, what is a resilience center? What does that mean? What do you do?
Resilience Center is the place where the community can gather, all ages, activities for the young kids, for the mothers, for elderly people, meet with professionals, psychologists, social workers, have activities together, and together build something new and getting the confidence to restart their life. I'll give you an example. A few weeks after that, the community decided to have what we call in Hebrew Seudat Hodaya, Thanksgiving dinner.
Right.
Which is in the Jewish tradition and very old tradition, that after something critical, you thank God for what happened, for the result somehow.
Right.
And they decided to gather all together. They organized a meeting outside on an open square. 400 people participated in a very emotional evening, beginning by remembering the 52 people killed,
Right.
launching yellow balloons for the hostages, giving some certificates to the heroes, because Ofakim has been saved by their own heroes. There was no external force. The citizens took their whatever they had at home. Many of them were policemen,
right.
and they went in the street and fought. And then a dinner to thank God for the miracle that each one of them has survived.
Right.
Now, it seems very simple, but you should remember that after such a trauma, and people were attacked at their own home,
right,
and the terrorists went inside the houses,
right,
they were in such stress that crossing the threshold of their own apartment was a challenge.
right.
I was in Ofakim 3 weeks after, and I met an old woman just near her house, and she told me that the first time I go out, for 3 weeks I didn't cross my door because I was too frightened.
I got to ask you, you're talking about the internal issue, and you're a volunteer-based organization. This was a most traumatic attack, still is, to Israel for sure, to Israelis, to so many people around the world, to Jews. Your volunteers were also impacted. And here you are, you're not mobilizing to help another country somewhere far where you fly onto, whether it's Marrakesh or elsewhere. You're right here at home. So those volunteers also needed support. How did that work?
That was fantastically. The only way to deal with trauma is to be active. And if you take all your energy to help the other, you overcome your own trauma.
Yeah, I've
and
heard
that's what you have seen, and that's what you teach, in fact. And when we are today in Ukraine teaching the local people, be active, take responsibilities, take initiatives, and you will feel better.
I heard this sentence once and I really love it. If you don't know what to do, give.
Right. Yeah. Right. Amazing. I mean, that's a great piece of advice for all of us who are, our viewers who've been watching this, who've been following the events in Israel. Be active. How do they get in touch with Natan? How does anyone, find out more about what you do and opportunities for volunteers? Do they exist for people outside of Israel?
First, we should remember that we are not only psychosocial.
Right.
NATAN is the only Israeli organization coming with an holistic approach. We have the medical element and we have the psychosocial element.
Right.
And we opened in Ofakim, but we should remember that on October the 8th, Sunday evening, we opened the first medical clinic for the evacuees of Kibbutz Kfar Aza, who were in Shfaim in residence.
Right.
Because nobody else could do that. Who is able to react so quickly and professionally? And in the same week, we opened 4 more clinics. 2 dental clinics, one in Eilat and one in the Dead Sea, and the same places, 2 medical clinics. So we try to bring really this holistic answer. Volunteers come. We never had a problem of recruiting.
Did you get
volunteers.
more after October 7th? Did people reach out to you and say how we can help?
A lot. Every day we
had
received
hundreds of physicians that flew down or went down to Eilat, to the Dead Sea, to Shfaim, to serve people until the government kicked in. It took time for the government to kick in,
right.
But people in the meantime have serious problems,
right.
Dental problems. One of the biggest problems in dental, first of all, there were no dental places to go, so we put up a makeshift dental clinic, but people were grinding their teeth. They had lots and lots of broken teeth, because they were just so tense and sleeping at night and grinding their teeth that they came every single day. We got patients with teeth that were broken.
Wow.
But to your question, we are looking specifically now for physicians, for doctors who speak Ukrainian or Russian to join us in a telemedicine project that we're doing in Ukraine. We have a fantastic kit that goes all the way nearly to the front line on the Russian border with people that have a kit that has everything you need, but they're not doctors. And that, through cloud, goes to a doctor who's sitting in his office. So any doctor that wants to join is welcome. On our internet site, you can find the donate button. That's
what's the website? What's the address?
NATAN Relief. What is it?
www.natanrelief.org.
NATANrelief.org. And you're mentioning the Ukraine. So with all of the challenges that you have in Israel and all that you've done, and I also hear that you provided relief and support for security forces who were traumatized and others, like wherever there is a need, you were there.
Yes.
This still, your agenda, global agenda, is still very much up and about.
Because we have to defend Israel. The best way to defend Israel is to show the bright face of this country.
Right.
And the bright face of this country is the civil society. It's our responsibility toward everyone who needs us.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the reason we continue in Ukraine, and that's the reason we continue in Nepal.
6 days after the war started in Ukraine, people were pouring over the Polish border. The first thing they saw was an Israeli flag and Natan's booth. You know, and I think this is a fantastic message for the world.
Yep.
And we are all extremely privileged. You know, we're sitting here in New York, we have good clothes, we have fantastic food, have an education. I think our ability to take all of this beauty and serve the world, it's tikkun olam, and that is that is what Natan is all about. And anybody that's interested in joining us is welcome to help, to reach out. Yes.
Yeah. We know that the people who were impacted by October 7th atrocities were not just Israelis. There were others as well, Thai workers, Filipinos. What have been your activities in those fields?
That's amazing. When you are 20 years underground in disaster, you know many people.
Right.
We helped the Philippines 2 or 3 times after the hurricane. Naturally, after the October 7, we could contact our colleagues, Filipino colleagues of CBN, Operation Blessing, and tell them, look, there is here a community. There are 50,000 Filipinos in Israel, caregiver mostly, and their families. They suffered as we did. They have 2 people killed. They have hostages. Some of them lost their job because of the situation. Come and help them. And nobody can help a Filipino and try to open his heart better than another Filipino.
Right.
Trained for that. And we had a group of 12 people who came for 2 months and distribute food and met the communities and met the wounded people in the hospital, Filipino for a Filipino, based on Natan infrastructure, Natan contacts.
Natan always finds a local partner because there's nobody like the people themselves who know what they need, you know, and this gives us 20 years of contacts all around the world, and it really showed itself after the 7th of October.
Are you active when it comes to October 7th itself? We now have, of course, the terrible war that's being waged in the south, in the north. What are you doing now in relation to this front, home front, civilian population and others?
We are mostly dealing with trauma. We have a big team of volunteers. We are already working in all the villages around what's called the Gaza envelope.
Right, or what we prefer, Israel envelope.
Or the Israel envelope.
Right.
These people are working all time and trying to help the community to regain confidence at the level of community and the level of individuals. And we are committed for this program for as long as it will be needed. Ofakim is the center of our activity in the south.
Right.
But it's very clear that we'll have to continue there for probably a long time because all these processes are very, very long.
Right. And it's this undertaking sounds like it should be the government's.
It will be. It will be. But processes take time, and people don't have that time.
Right.
So as I said earlier, we're filling the gap. We're filling the gap. We come to live. That's our motto. We come wherever we go to give the help to people in distress now.
Right.
But our object is to make it sustainable, make them able to take care of themselves, and go and help other people who are in need again.
And how do you help your volunteers? Because I imagine trauma is not only, you know, people have been impacted across the board.
We are training our volunteers. First, each volunteer is going through a training on trauma care.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you're a physician or you are a logistician or a social worker. What we said earlier, you have to be active. We train them how to be active, how to transmit this message to the community. And if we talk about medical care, we are dealing with humanitarian medical care, which is completely different.
Right.
When you meet your physician, he has 5 minutes for you, maybe 15.
Right.
Part of it in front of his computer.
Correct.
And that's the time he has for
Right.
you. In humanitarian medicine, you take half an hour for your patient. You don't have a computer. You look in his eyes, you discuss with him. If there is a need, there is a social worker in the next room that will join you, and you open a discussion. And this discussion is sometimes much more healing than any Band-Aid.
Right. All practical advice. Your efforts within Israel have not diminished your appetite to help across the world, as we've said.
Yes.
We know the Ukrainian front is still very much at serious humanitarian crisis. What are you doing there at the moment?
In Ukraine?
Yes.
In Ukraine, we have a program that started in June 2022, almost 2 years now.
Right.
Focusing on educators and school psychologists. And we train them to deal with the difficulties and with the stress of their own students. We should remember, in case of this kind of tragedy, when you reopen the school, it will not be the same school, particularly if it's in Ukraine and you have to go in a shelter and stay all day in the shelter. Your pupils will not be the same because their own experience is terribly stressing, but the teacher is also not the same because he's living the same stress.
Right.
So you must build a new concept, a new relation. And this new relation, you can learn it, and that's what we do. We did it with more than 600 educators in the last year and a half. Mm-hmm. And we are now moving closer to the Russian border, to the front line, because cities like Dnipro or like Kharkiv or like Donetsk, which are on the front, has immense needs.
Were the response towards you outside of Israel changed after October 7th with the war? We've seen what's happening in the field of public opinion. Yeah. Are you getting different responses as an organization or your volunteers on the ground?
No. Our partners remain the partners. We are well accepted. We don't hide our Israeliness. Not in Morocco. Then that was before the war.
Right.
Not in Nepal, not in Ukraine.
But when people are in need, they're in need. You know, we had a long time of serving Syrian refugees in Lesbos and in other places. People are in need. Somebody comes to help them. They don't start trying to find out what is your political affiliation. We are there as human beings to help whoever's in need.
You know, Alice, I got to admit that one of the thoughts that came to my mind with you assuming position as CEO of NATAN is you don't stop leading the way. You led the way into the Air Force for Israeli women and in many ways into various other roles within the IDF, and you're leading the way, showing us what's happening to Israelis now as they shift into the humanitarian world and the needs on earth, yes. Being more attuned as a result of the social situation. That level of care is truly inspirational. So you assumed position recently.
Yes.
describe your experience in the short few days that you've been. How are you feeling about this experience?
Well, first of all, I'm extremely grateful to be coming into an organization that Danny has been leading for the last 10 years.
Right.
I love gray hair. I think it's got a lot to teach us.
It's not gray anymore.
It's not gray anymore. No, but I really do appreciate it, and I appreciate everything Natan's been doing. We have to find a way now to be able to help Natan become more stable. Mm-hmm. Right now, Natan works in a way that once there's an earthquake, God forbid, in the Himalayas, then we come back and we first of all send a team and then come and look for the money and find a way to make it work. It's very tough running this way. Right. I'd like to help Natan stabilize itself a bit more.
Do you get any governmental support?
No, but that is an advantage. We get no governmental support, but we don't owe anything to anybody. And we can really be agile, go to a place, decide, is this the right place to be? No, it's not, we move here. If it is, we can operate. You know, we don't owe anything to anybody, and that's fantastic.
Right.
Yeah, and it feels very good. You know, we're always so busy with ourselves as Jews, etc. But yeah, it's not a bad thing. Yeah, but we are very busy with ourselves, and I feel very good to be part of an organization that can take this beauty and give it a bit outwards.
And the truth is, the truth is that when we think about the Eurovision, and how come the political decision of the judges was skewed against Israel, but the majority stood with Israel.
Yes.
And when we look across the world, we understand that there is a loud minority against Israel, but the majority understands and favors and understands the spirit of Israel. I look at the two of you and I see the heart of a nation. I understand, you know, that the value proposition of Israel lies in being not just proudly Israel, but proudly Israelis, in actually manifesting that vision of being a light unto the world. And it's a true privilege and inspiration. And one practical thing I'm going to take from this too short an interview is the idea when you don't know what to do, give. And at the same time, doing is really a huge part of the solution. This is what we tell also our fellow Jews now.
And the third element, be optimistic.
Be optimistic.
Because the Israeli civil society is so strong, so efficient, that we will not fail.
Optimism. You've heard it and you've seen it here, and I could not agree more. Natan, as Israeli civil society, have proven the incredible strength and capacity to provide all the needed solution when the structures in charge were failing. Yet, in spite of the events of Israel, it's beautiful to see that Natan has not stopped its activity abroad. That passion and excellence is a shining light and inspiration to all of us. Remember, doing is key, and Israel is fortunate to have Natan, Alice, Danny, and all of your volunteers to have your voices in Israel and outside of Israel all over the world. It truly gives us all hope. And to you, our viewers, what a gift. It was an incredible moment for us to know that even in times of crisis in Israel, you see those incredible Israelis and Israeli civil society taking care of the world. So remember, don't keep it a secret. Share that news with the world. You've heard about the website, you know where to go for inspiration, and never, ever despair. Thank you all for watching, and see you all next time as we cast another fascinating Eye on Israel.